And let's welcome the last team of this afternoon, Duck-tective.
Let's go. This was a hard day. I just finished my shift and my third whiskey, and I was wondering why I was thinking out loud in front of an audience instead of being in my office. There was this other mystery that kept haunting my mind. Who was this detective Quackers? I once dreamt that he was in fact 3 ducks under a trench coat, and that made me laugh. But yet the mystery stayed unsolved. I think I need to get back to the beginning of all of this. I'm Clément, game and narrative designer, and welcome to Duck-tective. Now, before we start, do you know the difference between 3 ducks under a trench coat and a plane? There's no difference. Now, before we actually start, I need to stop this music because it's gonna stay otherwise. So yeah, Duck-tective, a game about 3 ducks under a trench coat that solve mysteries. The main idea behind this game was to make a game that had both quirky controls and weird mechanics of moving and gathering clues, and also a fulfilling investigation system. You know, in lots of classic investigation games, the game kind of drives you towards the conclusion that they want to achieve, well, the game wants to achieve. And in this game, we wanted to make a system that allowed the player to make their own solutions, their own hypothesis. And with the quirky controls, where you have to balance your ducks, we'll come back to that later, and that investigation system, we wanted a funny story, but intrinsic, a comedy, but with interesting story. In a nutshell, our game is targeted at PC or Switch, and for 15 to 35 aged players. We don't want to target new players. They have to be somewhat used to playing games. And it's not recommended for first-time experience. You'll see why later. And also an affinity towards original, independent, and narrative games, of course. Now, the egg or the duck. Who came first? Obviously, our inspirations came first. We have a few of them right here. Return of the Obra Dinn for the investigation system, Phoenix Wright for the funny story, and Detective Grimoire for the mechanics again. And some of these games are really comedic, like Phoenix Wright. Some of them are less comedic, like Obra Dinn, but you see that there's a duck, so I suppose there's a joke in it, I don't know. And some of them are more or less complex. We aim to have lots of comedy and a bit of complexity and thoroughness in the mechanics. Now that you know the basics, let's hear Leah about the lore of our game.
So to us human, birds are just birds. Like, it's tiny flying creatures, nothing to be afraid of. But hidden inside our world, there is the secret society of birds. They are as intelligent as us. They are organized. They even have tiny pubs with tiny stools, and they call them crowbar. And they also have a police, a bird police, and a very good healthcare also. They are very organized. So they need to stay hidden from us because we could be a threat to their tiny little world. So that's why the first rule in the bird world is to stay secret. We don't have to know that bird is as intelligent as us. So this is a classic neighborhood made by our field agent, Solène. So it's a classic neighborhood, it's cartoonish in its shapes, but the atmosphere is kind of mysterious, kind of scary, because something bad happened here, in this peaceful neighborhood. For the first time in history, a bird has killed a human. This threatens the secret of the bird, because if humans can learn that birds are sentient and can kill, there is no doubt that humans will exterminate all of them. So, to solve this mystery and protect the secret, Pelicano, the chief officer of the bird police, gathered a unique team to solve this mystery. So let's meet them.
In our Duck Dream Team, first of all, you have Becky, our main character. She is an investigation journalist, and she was recommended to Pelicano by someone. She's not a policeman. She has nothing to do in the police because she's a journalist, but he puts her in the group. Then you have Barry, the detective. He is the most experienced detective in the bird police, which doesn't mean he's competent, and his only goal is to find a culprit. And finally, you have Buck. He's just the chief's son, because there has to be someone on the bottom of that pile of ducks. So yeah, I think he chose the best people to handle that quite exceptional case. I wanted to go back a little bit on an artistic direction made by Solène and Santiago, our artists. First of all, the environment. I think it looks really cool, personally. It stems from references such as Sam and Max and all the cartoons where you had this really detailed environment with still a cartoonish tone, with really exaggerated shapes and broken shapes, and also strong lightnings. That's a common trope in detective fiction. With that, you have jazz music made by Grégoire, once again, who really brings that environment to make a really good feel, I mean. And also a mix of realistic sound design and musical sound design. Then we have the characters, and you have here the model of our fellow Duck-tective, which is 3 ducks under a trench coat, should I remind you. And so for the characters, we have the birds on one side and the humans on the other side. The birds are kind of anthropomorphic, with just the face that's anthropomorphic. It's less than, for example, the Looney Tunes. And for the humans, they really have their own personality, but they all look a little bit dumb because, well, you have this thing on your left that roams around, and they have no clue that it's a duck and not a human, where it's clearly obvious. And also, as you heard before, audio gibberish in the dialogues. Now, before we go further, maybe we can stop that night ambience, because otherwise maybe it will make you sleep. It makes me. There we go. Let's see our trailer. I failed my joke. So, if you want to see it for real, it's boxed right there. I think it was a great expense of money for the project. Now that the important things are sorted out, let's see our teaser.
So you're probably asking yourself right now, what the duck is this? So don't worry, you will know everything you need to know about being a bird inside the human world in a few minutes. So, what will be your mission as a duck detective? In the first phase, you have to find clue, obviously. So look around, find a way to get the clue and pick it. Then you will enter the second phase, making an hypothesis. Using the clue and the information you get, try to create a hypothesis that will answer one of Pelicano's questions about the crime. So it seems easy for a great detective like you. But remember that you are 3 ducks under a trench coat, so you are very, very clumsy. So collision with something, or walking upstairs, or slippery surface, you will start to trip. And if you start to trip in front of a human, that will be very dangerous for your secret. If you start tripping, human will get suspicious. So that's not really good for your cover. But if human gets suspicious too many times, or worst, if you fall in front of them, then they know. They know your secret, you failed, and you have to go back to the start of the level. So now you are able to understand the challenge of picking clue. Let's now talk about your second mission, making hypotheses.
We've teased you and we've teased you about that hypothesis system, but how does it work? Well, first, you get the clues. Here's an example of random clues that we just put there because. And a question from the chief, what happened to the canary? That's a good question. Well, to form an hypothesis, you have to link two clues together with a bit of sentence. For example, the bedroom window has forgotten the black feathers. Yeah, I mean, that's a bit weird. When you make an hypothesis that makes no sense, the game tells you, and so you just have to try again. It tells you that doesn't make sense. Okay, let's try something else. The canary has eaten the suction cup. Do you think that's an hypothesis that's valid or that's invalid? What do you think? Yeah, that's invalid. I mean, that could be possible with a lot of time. I mean, with a lot of time and effort, it could be possible, but we'll just say that it isn't. The cage has eaten the canary. Yeah, in a metaphorical sense, you could say that it's true, but we count it as invalid. Yeah, that is very, very wrong. I mean, yeah, that's true, but that's out the scope of this vertical slice. Maybe for the full game, though. Yeah, that's a good hypothesis. The canary has been attacked by an unknown suspect. That makes sense, I guess. Yes. And now that you have an hypothesis, you have to provide proof or evidence to turn it into a conclusion, to transform it. So, for example, you could add as a proof one of those clues. So the black feathers, the broken cage, or the bloody yellow feathers. I'm not saying this to sound British. That's because they have blood on it. Well, now you're ready to go into the world and be a dog detective in a human world. Let's see how it goes. Let's ignore the first seconds.
No, he did. No, no. No, wait. No, wait. No. No. Wait. Wait. No, wait. No, wait. No, wait.
Now, for those of you that want to keep the surprise and want to actually play the game, now it's the time to look away. And that's it. Now you've seen how one playthrough goes, so we're going to show you 5 more. No, that's not true. This player decided that Annie did the crime, but you might find otherwise if you play the game for real. Each player can draw their own conclusions. That's me again. We just wanted to tell you a bit more about the story. So you've discovered our 3 characters, the settings, the crime, but maybe you want to learn more about what happens after that vertical slice in the actual game. Well, you have the first act where basically Pelicano sends you on investigations. So you find that Annie may be the culprit, so you go to investigate her. And then you find that someone else may be the culprit, so you go to investigate them. That's about 8 levels. Then you find the actual culprit, the one who did the murder, 8 levels later. But you discover that he's a hitbird or a hitman. And so he has been paid by someone else to, well, kill the human. And that's very unsettling. So you say that to Pelicano, we found who killed the human. And Pelicano closes the case. Now that it's become way more complicated, he tells Becky that he doesn't trust her to finish it, because it's now more complicated than what they thought. So Becky has one more failure, and she goes away. She gives up. She go live in a pond like a regular duck, eats breadcrumbs, and swim and do whatever ducks do. But then at the beginning of the second act, a character comes to her. It's the sidekick of the big crow that you have heard of during the gameplay. And he says that his boss is, well, that's a bit of a spoiler, but anyways. His boss is really not happy with the fact that someone killed a human and tries to uncover the secrets for the humans. Because if the humans discover the secret, well, then he cannot traffic seeds anymore. So he hires the ducks, and you go back for 10 more levels of finding the actual suspect under the protection of the big crow. And at the end of the second act, you find who is the actual suspect. The culprit, sorry. Then you have 4 more levels to find where he's hiding. That's, well, we don't have the actual suspect's art, but yeah. 4 levels, and then the final confrontation where you beat him and stuff happens, and then the conclusion where everyone is happy and it's the end. So that's roughly how the story would go according to what we wrote. And then what happens after the vertical slice?
So there are a few features that we were not able to put in the vertical slice. So first, we want that in the final guide, you will be able to examine each clue with one of the bird, one of your choice. So each duck has its own experiences and memories, so they can give different comments on the clue. Sometimes it will be relevant, sometimes it will be just for fun. But if you are curious enough to listen to the ducks, they might give you an information that will be helpful during the hypothesis making phase. So later in the game, as we say, Becky go back to the wildlife and become regular ducks that swim in the pond. At this point, she acquires a new ability to be a duck, to transform to a duck. So when she will go back on track with her fellows, they know we'll be able to turn into ducks to investigate. So it's open new places, new challenge, and new opportunities for the gamers.
So for those of you wondering, the pond level is just 1 level. We don't do that for 10 levels. That would be too much. Eating breadcrumbs is, well, not interesting. Now that you know how the game plays and what is the game, let's see how we make the game.
So we talked a bit about our main targets. As we said, it's gamers from 15 to 35 plus year old, and which have already played video games. Duck-tective is not recommended for a first gaming experience, but for players with more veterancy. It is designed for players who enjoy both challenging mechanics and an interesting narration. For example, they will enjoy puzzles more if solving them definitely impacts the story. We identified a lot of competitors on the market we want to reach and extracted 3 main competitors from them. Tangle Tower, because it is a little game with a lot of humor and a complex investigation system. Sam & Max, because of the silly universe they develop, their sense of staging, and Untitled Goose Game, because you play in the game, you have to infiltrate the human world as we have to do this in our game. Those productions are close to ours, and we can expect to have the same kind of achievements at the end. In terms of audience, those games go from 100,000 players to more than 1 million. We identified a medium target at 500,000 users, which is what has made this episode of Sam & Max.
So now you see our main competitors. So what would you buy the game and why people will buy the game? So first, because of the story. I'm sure that now you want to know the end of the story, so who killed the human. And you will feel like a true detective because of our mechanics of making hypotheses. There is a lot of humor and a silly universe to discover. And you will meet a lot of different characters. Some are birds, some are human, and they all have their personality. So it will be like being the hero of a thriller and a comedy at the same time, like the perfect mix between a Hitchcock movie and Scooby-Doo.
But Leah, what Hitchcock movie?
You know the one with the creator?
Yeah, it was Jurassic Park.
Yeah, this one, the big bird, big old bird. Yeah. Doesn't that sound amazing?
So how many birds do we need to make this game, and how many birds does it take to remove a light bulb? Well, for this game, we need 13 birds for 16 months. That's what we calculated, so a bit more than what we are here, which would make the cost of 1 level to 34k approximately, for about 25 levels, at a total cost of 860k, and maybe more levels later, who knows?
We have worked those last months on the main uncertainties of the project, and we know how to do every main feature of the game. So the tripping system, the investigation system, the interaction system, and the dialogue system are all mastered. It has allowed us to finally learn how to make the first level and to have a proper production pipeline for the rest of the levels that will have to be done. So here the level will be our production units. Our strategy is to have every 4 level a phase of playtest and QA to be able to ensure that at every step of the development the required level of quality and it will be reached, and to avoid as much as possible to have a technical debt. The production in itself is supposed to last for 12 months and the release month 14. We want to keep resources after the release to ensure level of quality with 2 patches, and everything ends at 16th month. So here you can see about what correspond the production unit. We can see that we know how to make a level in 2 weeks, and you also be able to see the cost. This knowledge allows us to be able to scope the project according to the new production constraint that we will have and the one that can happen during the production process. This way, we can also deal with uncertainties during this phase 2. We have some hypotheses about in the way to evaluate the kind of amount of income we can have from the game. The first hypothesis is that we target Steam as our main distribution platform. We target 6 months of sales, and we are edited by a publisher who works within this studio and that will handle communication. We talked about some publisher like Big Ben or Devolver. So what are the output of this? It will be a target audience at 500,000 unique users with a median price at €10. It will allow an income of more than 2 million euros. It means a return on investment close to 2x. And this is a medium expectation, so it's in the case if the game is not a total failure, but also if the game is not a total success regarding to what is happening on the market.
Now, it's time to wrap up. So we know who this Detective Quackers is. We know how to play the game. we know how to fail a joke. Well, our game, I forgot what I wanted to say. Let's go back. Our game really has this balance between quirky controls and fulfilling investigation system, where the player can make their own solutions. Why did I say that you might want to play the game yourself? Because in that level that you've seen, there are multiple outcomes possible depending on what you think happened. Like if you think Annie's innocent, you can tell the game and it works. You can finish the level. And added to that, the funny and interesting story that we hope to make, I think makes a kind of a good whole, and voilà. Here we go. It's a bit late. And we'll let the player maybe solve the case. Now, what about you? Do you think you could quack the case? Thank you for listening. Now,
Clément Orlandini as a game designer. Léa Ropion, Guillaume David, Hugo Varion-Saillant, Grégoire Monesma, Solène Pobel, Santiago Revetria, Noé Simon et Clara.
Louis, associate producer at Asobo. This is the third time we see your presentation, and thank you very much because we had a lot of fun. You're making really great joke, and you speak very well. Even if you repeat some joke, like Jacques Chirac, of course, even the last one. Yes, but thanks. You have a good concept. It was clear. We understand quickly where you want to go, and yeah, let's make it happen now.
Hello, so Milan, marketing and communication for Indies. I just wanted to congratulate you on some things, like you understand, like instead of saying you will have a funny game, you just have to show it. And this is something a lot of actually developers don't understand, because everyone is able to say we will have a funny game, and not so many people are at the end doing a funny game. So yeah, congrats on that.
Well, Jaime from Madrid, and I know that I will also repeat myself, but what the duck, man? You crack it again. This was Duck-tastic, and from the first time, your ideas had so much potential. At the end, you have been able to show it. You have been able to see how it will work. I think that we all can agree that maybe it has some things to polish, that maybe the mechanic and the consequences of failing are not very clear, but at least we see the problems, we see the obstacles, we see the main mechanics, we see the hypothesis, the famous hypothesis system, and it worked. It worked. It opens so many possibilities, so many different ways to crack the cases. So I think that you have been able to show the main mechanics, to show that they work, that they need polish, but that your project, that we can trust your project. And also I think that it could also have potential for a game for children. Maybe you will have to make like an adaptation for some of the languages and some terms and some jokes, but it could have a very big potential for being a game that could be also enjoyed by children and their parents, because one of the best ways to make games for children are, as also happens in movies, are movies that can be watched by children but also enjoyed by the parents. So I think that there you have a really good target, or a good, really good possibility. And I don't know if you have thought about that. But again, above anything else, congratulations.
Quick question. So, what's your plan for when you get an hypothesis, but it's not the right one? Well, it's not the law-wise correct one. Do you have a plan to, I don't know, bottleneck the story at some point to make everything right, or what's your plan for that? Because it seems strange that you can advance without having the full solution. So I'll be curious to know what's your plan.
Yeah, we thought. Hang on. Okay. We thought about this. What happens if you have a wrong conclusion? we had a few hypotheses about that, and I think what happens is maybe the order in which you investigate the suspects. So if you say Annie was the culprit, then you go to the victim's apartment to investigate on Annie. If you say Big Crow is the culprit, then you go into a crowbar to investigate. So I think that's how it would work. And also you may have pivot moments in the story where you have to make that master hypothesis. You take back everything that you know from the previous levels, and you have to say, okay, this is the culprit. And if you say the wrong culprit, maybe you have like a fake ending, and you can go back and try again. So those are a few hypotheses on what could happen.
All right, cool, thanks. Great job. Great job.
Hi, so I'm very lucky because for me it's the first time I'm seeing this, and oh, this is so charming. I've been laughing the entire time, from the environment to the soundtrack to the writing. It's very, very cool. And the only thing I want to talk about is the production plan, because I would really like this game to happen, and the production plan is very, very scary, in my humble opinion. How do you make a character in a week? I don't know, but this is like something I would rework for this game to happen. Otherwise, just so charming. It's lovely. Congratulations. It's amazing.
It's a really nice game. Now, you're doing a lot of writing in the game. You have a lot of dialogue, much more than we have seen before, and the comedy aspect is in that dialogue. I hear, and I myself, I laugh when I read, ha ha ha. And I just think that this is where you really need to, I don't know who writes the dialogue, probably, yes, okay. You have to make it, sometimes it's like there's a little too much, it's going around and around, but that's also funny. But if it keeps on being the same thing, you have to lift it up to new levels of fun, somehow. I'm not saying I understand how to do it, I'm just saying that it has to be changing as the game moves along, so it keeps on being surprising and funny, and not being too much like first this bird is saying that, and then the blah, 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 blah. But you have a great ammunition in that way of making the game. Yeah, thank you.
I think all the people here wants to play the games now. So maybe we're gonna finish the day now. Thanks and congrats again, the last team.